I swear every single time I start a YouTube video, I fumble over the first few words that I'm gonna start to say and what I want to talk about. Even though I've been thinking about this all week, I just can't seem to find the words to get out. Well, this is my opening statement, so hope you all enjoy. But today we're gonna be talking about the Sigma Art 24-70 2.8 for Sony cameras. And why I think this is an incredible lens. Like you gotta get your hands on one of these things. It's amazing. So a little bit of background information and context as to why we're gonna be talking about this. And for most people out there, you're probably looking at this video to see if this lens is the right one for you. But in my background, I was a 100% prime shooter. The only lenses that I ever carried with me were a 35mm, a 55mm, and an 85mm. And those were my go-to lenses. I went everywhere with them. And I was all about the, hey, I want the most bokeh, I want low light capabilities. I want everything that a prime lens carries with it. I was that kind of shooter. Although this is an expensive lens and it is a little bit heavier, it is so worth every penny. Now, I'm gonna explain this to you and just a couple of reasons why I love this lens so much. Before, my go-tos for portrait photography were usually my 55mm and my 85mm. And I still love the bokeh, I love the look, and I still use those lenses today. However, I have now moved from those being my go-to portrait lenses. I'm moving into the Sigma Art 24-70 2.8 being my main portrait lens. Now, like I said, I still swap out lenses every once in a while, but about 90% of the time when I'm doing photo shoots, this is my go-to lens. And coming from a prime shooter, that's saying a lot. And the reason why I believe in it so much is because the bokeh is still incredible. When you zoom in and you're at like 40mm and then beyond all the way up to 75, you get some incredible images coming out of this. I've taken some really close-up portraits, I've taken some far away shots, and just like the color, the way it does autofocus, especially with eye autofocus now, and then the background blur, and then the way it just grabs the subject still makes me feel like I'm shooting on a prime lens. And that's a huge difference, because there's always been the saying that, you know, zoom lenses aren't as sharp as a prime lens, but this one, the Sigma Arts 24-70 2.8, I promise you, it's a workhorse. It does its job. Now, yes, because it is a 2.8, you don't get that really shallow depth of field like you would with a 1.4 or 1.8. If you're looking for all that bokeh, it's not gonna reach that level of bokeh, but it does an incredible job. When you're doing headshots or you're doing portraits, you will not be afraid to bust this lens out, throw it on, zoom in a little bit, and then take your shots. The other thing I really love about this lens is it's so versatile, and that's probably the most cliche thing to talk about when you're talking about a 24-70. The way it captures footage and the way it captures images is just so great to have, especially if you're in a crowded area. Like we went to Rome and there's a ton of people around, and you know, I don't want to be carrying multiple lenses and have somebody watch me change it. What I want to do is make sure I have my camera secured. I can easily bust it out, zoom in, take the photo, put it away, and I'm good to go. Like I was just in love with this lens. Now, the other thing that I really love about traveling with this lens is it does have a lock. I'm not sure if that's really gonna focus here, but you can see the lock here. When you're at 24, it locks, and it's easy to just pop out. But the other thing is when it's hanging, it doesn't drop. I'm shaking this pretty good, no movement. So that's really helpful, especially when you just throw it on like a sling or you're hanging it off your backpack, whatever way you decide to carry with your camera, your lens isn't going to pop out and just start hanging, you know, like this. Now, the last thing I wanted to talk about is the size of this lens. It's kind of heavy, it's not the worst, but you do have an 82mm thread here. So what I recommend doing, if this is the biggest lens that you decide to pick up and handle, just get step-up rings. Like, you're gonna need an ND filter if you're going to be doing some filming. It's super easy. And that's it. I mean, the 24-70 Sigma Art 2.8 millimeter, this thing is a beast. If you're in that same thought process that I was, where you're like, I'm not sure what zoom lens to get, although most people say this is a starter lens, that this focal length, this is also just an amazing lens for any level of photography that you're at. If you're a beginner, an amateur, or you're a professional, you know, get this lens. Like, this is awesome. 24-70 is a great range. You can use it for basically everything. And if you pre-program something like, I have it up here on my C buttons, the Super 35, then you got a whole nother range. It's great. That's my review for the 24-70 Sigma Art, and I highly recommend that you may want to consider getting this lens for a lot of your photography. So with that, thanks for tuning in. We'll chat with you later.